What is up?
Not much, man. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to thank you. Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time, brother.
Dude, it's been a long time since maybe the Ataraxis promotion.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. First off, I appreciate the copy of the book. And what a cool name. Seize, clear, build, and hold. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was right out of military doctrine, brother. It was Army Field Manual 3-24, the counterinsurgency
Oh,
model.
yeah, I want to get into that because it reminds me so much of what Petraeus did in Iraq with that kind of like the outline he put through.
It's exactly what he did. That's where I stole it, to be honest with you.
Wow, man.
Appreciate it. I like the mats in the background,
Oh,
man. Look
thank
at
you,
that.
man. I'll give you a quick little tour. I'll give you a little tour here, man. Let me unplug for a second. Here's a quick little tour. We got we got
Yeah.
we got the mat, and then we got Elio about here.
Uh,
We got
yes,
the
sir.
10 by 10, man. And we got it. It came in big at COVID. Oh my gosh, it came in so big
Oh,
at COVID.
hell yeah.
So
You guys got hit so hard up there, man. When I was up there, I don't know if I talked to you about this, but I was down in Florida for COVID and nothing fucking changed for us. Nothing.
crazy. Wow,
Was
nothing.
training every night on them. I didn't miss any mat time. I mean, it was life is normal. I mean, be honest with you, if, in our town, we lived in Ocala.
Yeah,
If you wore a mask to a restaurant, you got
yeah.
stared at.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah, it
And I
was
don't
it
think
was
you
so
guys had
different.
much. You guys didn't have much worse outcomes than we did you?
I don't think so. I don't know anyone
No.
directly affected.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I was like scared to death for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then after about a month and no one I knew got it, I'm like, dude, this is freaking
Yeah.
lunacy, dude. I was absolute lunacy, dude.
Well, I will tell. I mean, it was a real thing, right? I got it once.
Oh,
My
oh, oh,
sis
it sucks when you get it. It's like the worst sore throat for like 3 days and then
Oh,
it's done.
well, I was that dumbass, right? You know, I think I can beat everything. So I put on some sweats, a pair of plastics, and a rucksack, and I decided I was going to go sweat out COVID. That didn't go
Perfect.
very well. Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect. Does it
yeah.
work? Or you like Aaron?
No, fuck no. I felt like shit the next day.
So what would make this a home run for you?
Um, you know what? I do a lot of this, right? It's weird. I wrote two books, and both of them are geared towards corrections. One's a correctional leadership manual. The other one's this one you have. Knowing they're tiny markets, man. I could have gone for a bigger market. That's what I know. That's my wheelhouse. I didn't want to step outside of it. There's 8 million leadership books out there, and there's really nothing specific to corrections. Some since I put that out, a couple have come out, which is pretty cool, I thought. But just trying to make a dent for the next generation and help the next crew coming up to develop their talents. But I do want to enforce, not just in law enforcement, military veterans and all that, but everybody, the importance of fitness. Listen, I don't know if you saw it, I put on LinkedIn tonight, but I commented on Corrections Unlimited post. Brother, I got lost along the way, man. I turned in about 2017. I was a fat slob. I mean,
Really?
I was disgustingly fat.
No
Um,
kidding.
so I went from elite athlete in the military, when I first started jujitsu and all that. But then even prior to that, 96, I got to go through the Olympic Training Center for Greco-Roman wrestling through the Air Force team. Our coach was the assistant national coach, Rich Estrella. So we all got to participate in the full national Greco camp. Elite condition, walking around at, probably 190, sucking the 163 for tournaments. I mean, just completely shredded. I get out of the military, get into law enforcement, get married. I make every excuse in the world. And, several years later, I'm a blob. I'm just disgusting, fat, couldn't get out of my own way if I tried. And finally, one day, man, I didn't recognize the dude in the mirror, just to be honest with you.
Wow.
So my wife had a good doctor she went to. I went and checked him out, talked to him a little bit. He actually just suckered me into I say suckered, it was a great move, some sort of a weight loss challenge.
Yep.
And, I did real well in it. That actually didn't hold. I started getting heavy again because what I didn't do is add in the resistance training.
Okay.
And if you're not lifting, man, it's not going to go anywhere. You've got to lift, especially as we age. I'm 52 now. Anything above, I'd say 40, you're losing 1 to 3% of your lean muscle mass a year
Mhm.
if you're not lifting. And that's a true indicator of longevity is your skeletal muscle mass. The more you can put on, the better off you're going to be. And I feel like a new human now. She'll be, fast forward. My wife's been fucking wonderful. She's my training partner. We get up at 4:30 every morning. We get to the gym together, and we
Wow.
crush it. We crush it, man, every day.
That is awesome. Is
So,
the gym in your house or is it you go somewhere?
no, we go somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very disciplined, but I have to be honest. If my gym was in my house, I don't know if I would be that disciplined.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's
Yeah, I totally agree. Because if it's always there, it's never there. I have to leave my house to work out. Like
yes,
I did it during COVID here, and we all the jujitsu lessons with my sons were here during COVID. But like as soon as the schools opened and the gyms opened up again, I got to do it outside because the phone rings, the doorbell knocks, the dog
yes, sir.
barks, and you wonder like the dog keeps barking, then you stop what you're doing, and you go upstairs, and next thing you know, you're taking wash out of the dryer because your wife needs the washer, and like the whole workout's destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yes,
It's
sir.
you gotta get out of the
Built-in
house.
excuses.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, built-in
Yes, sir.
excuses. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. You said that what was the most, you said you weighed 168, which I can't believe. What was the highest you ever were?
Well, I competed at 163, but full disclosure, that was I won't say getting help to the scale, but people keeping an eye on me, make sure I didn't fall over.
Hmm.
So that was completely dehydrated,
Yeah.
wrung full of water. So the highest, I have a picture of it. I truly don't know what the number is. I'm going to tell you it's probably 3 plus.
No,
Oh
really?
yeah, I was a blob.
Whoa.
I was a freaking blob, man.
No.
Yeah. So and again, no surgeries, no none of that crap. Just to have my hormones checked, got those leveled out, and back at it.
I've seen you. I mean, we follow each other online, and I've seen you hit it with that. I can't believe that chain hasn't given out yet on some of those leg things you're doing.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, you are freaking putting up some weight. I can't believe you're out of shape ever, and I can't believe you're 163 at one point, dude, because you're a freaking monster right now. How about this? Let's get started.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Let's,
get it.
let's get it going. All right, man, dude, Brian, I appreciate you, dude. Here we go.
You too, my brother.
Bryan Antonelli. Welcome to Built Not Born.
Hey, thank you, brother, man. It's an honor to be here sitting with you.
Brian, it's such an honor to have you. For our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm a ordinary guy, not college educated. I tried college for one semester, realized it was not for me, and joined the military. I joined the Air Force 1993, served in 1997. Had some interesting times there. Fast forward a little bit, got into law enforcement 1997 at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, completed a 25-year career with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, 15 locations, somewhere in that ballpark anyway. Several locations, transferred all around the country, worked at some of the most difficult and challenging prisons in the country. Ended up as the senior deputy regional director in the Northeast Regional Office in Philadelphia. Prior to that, I had some high profile assignments as Hazelton, West Virginia, right after Whitey Bulger got murdered. Coleman, Florida, right after that, the largest prison complex in the country. And then I was actually the chief of emergency preparedness for the entire agency for several years. Beyond that, I retired in 2023. Wonderful family. My wife's amazing. My workout partner, best friend, all that, man. She's all over it with me. So she stuck in through some challenging times through the careers moving around the country, and I'll never forget that. Two great children. We have identical twin girls, both just graduated high school this year and are freshmen at the University of South Carolina. But beyond that, man, ordinary person, love to work out, love jujitsu, it's training. I think this is 28 years now. Started in 1997, whatever that math works out to. Started with Jimmy Fortunato. He was a guy in South Jersey. He was actually at a Fortunato Karate Academy. He was a Steve Maxwell blue belt. At the time, it was perfectly acceptable for a blue belt to be running a school because there weren't very many of them. After Jimmy, I went over to Maxercise with Steve Maxwell. That's where I met Phil and Ricky. But training with them, God, it's been 27 years now, I believe, with Phil and Rick. White to brown with them. Fortunately, I moved all over the country, so I did not get to stick around or finish my journey with them. Finally got promoted to black belt there. Hanato Tavares promoted me to black belt officially with the FHJJF. So now I'm training at Spartan Mixed Martial Arts in Columbia, South Carolina, where I hope to finish my career. We do not want to move again. We've moved way too many times, and we absolutely love it down here in South Carolina. Other than that, we don't have anything going on.
Besides that, nothing. Dude, lot to unpack there. What I like to do is I like to touch on, first off, thank you for your service, touch on your Air Force career, 25 years in law enforcement in some of the toughest prisons. You literally wrote the book on prison reform, Seize, Clear, Build, and Hold. Freaking one of the coolest titles I've ever heard. I'd like to get into that. Got some cool quotes from that book. But before we do that, man, you spent 35 years in corrections, transforming some of America's toughest, the most violent prisons. What's the biggest thing you learned trying to change institutions like that?
Don't rush. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to prioritize your moves. I'll say this up front, man. I'm a big Jocko Willink fan. I do follow his principles a lot, and a lot of my principles are based off of his. Just to be honest, I got to give him the credit there. The dude's a wizard, and I love what he teaches. But as he says, prioritize and execute. And then you also have to reassess your priorities because the enemy gets a vote, right? So what's a priority right now might be priority 2 by 4 o'clock. I'd say the biggest lessons and challenges were getting the staff buy-in. You really have to get them involved in the planning process. Explain every little detail in the beginning, especially as a new leader, because literally I came in the door and everything was broken, literally everything. The leadership, I'm not going to say anything positive or negative. A good bunch of guys there, it just didn't work out, right? It is what it is there. I'll tell you though, short story, right? So when I first get there, I get called on a Friday evening, ask me if I'm interested in the position. I said, I don't know, man, because this is my first time in South Carolina at the time. I was sitting as the warden at the prison in Williamsburg, which is a very good assignment. We lived in Pawleys Island, which is just south of Myrtle Beach, real sleepy town, beautiful place, right? So I get called Friday night and ask me if I'd be interested in the position. And, it wasn't a promotion, but it probably would have been a little more money. I said, I'd think about it. I'll talk to the wife. And then 2 hours later, I got a phone call congratulating me on volunteering to go up there. So that Monday morning, my truck miraculously started. I started heading north, got up there, and I'm not the type of guy that goes out to bars or anything. So I head right to the jail. They're in there. They're doing showers that night, which if you know much about a high security prison, you really don't try to do anything at night. You don't have as many staff there. It's not safe. It's not secure. You really want everything done during the daytime. So I get in there. Really, there's like 2 or 3 guys that know who I am because I had worked there before, but it had been a minute. So I get back there, walking around, and I just say, "Hey, what's going on?" They said, "Well, we're still doing showers down in Alpha Unit." So I run down there, go help out. I'm just acting like a CEO. I'm in civilian clothes. They have no idea who the hell I am. So I'm just pulling inmates with them, running them the showers back and forth. But it was so inefficient, man. What they were doing was over the top, and that's why it was taking God knows how many more hours than it should have, right? So the next 2 days, man, I'm walking around the jail, and I've got I'm not going to say any names. I've got one of the leftover executive staff from the prior regime still there. And he's in my ear the entire time. This is Hazelton. You don't have time to do that. You can't just walk around and talk to people all day. We've got important decisions to make, and just 2 days of that crap. And I'm just listening to it, just kind of shaking my head. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just not going to feed into it. So finally, the third day, this guy says to one of the other AWs who knew me very well, it's AW's associate warden, says to him, he says, "Hey, get all the execs together in the warden's conference room at 2 o'clock, and let's come up with a shower plan." I looked at him. I said, "Stop. I've heard you for the last 2 days saying you don't have time to do anything." I said, "Brother, this is exactly why you don't have time to do anything. You make every damn decision in this place." I said, get a couple of senior officers, union steward, a lieutenant, a unit manager, put them in a room, tell them to write you a shower plan. If it makes half a bit of sense, enact it." He laughs. He knows me. So he laughs. He takes off. He does it. We brief it the next morning. And long story short, Monday, they had taken them till 8:30, 9 o'clock to finish showers. They were done by 2 p.m. That next time they did them because it was their plan. And it wasn't that it was that much more efficient of a plan. They wanted it to work. It was their plan. They were bought in. They were motivated, and they felt like they mattered for the first time in a long time. You accomplish several things with that, right? You get the staff's buy-in. You get their trust. You're in the process of developing your next generation of leadership because they're developing plans and procedures. And never mind corrections, right? Any organization, a lot of them fail at that. They don't develop their in-house talent, and it leaves.
So you're at Hazelton, right? You mentioned Whitey Bulger, who any fans of Martin Scorsese movies, The Departed, that's Jack Nicholson in The Departed. So
Yes,
he
sir.
wound up getting killed. Fast forward, goes to jail, and he winds up getting murdered in prison, doesn't he?
Yes, sir.
Wow. So what? So was that in Hazelton? Was that in the
Yeah, that was in Hazleton, and that's literally the reason I was sent there because that happened.
really? And then how does a prison like Hazelton, before you get there, go off the hinges? What happens here? Like, what are the steps that go from it's under control to wow, we need a new change of leadership?
I'm just going to be blunt. It was never really under control. It wasn't opened right. They sent a few of us in say 2006, maybe 6 to 8. They sent a few of us in to kind of clean it up. Wasn't opened properly. Wasn't really treated like a penitentiary. The crew that was there in the beginning, again, actually a really good bunch of guys. They just didn't have any experience at that security level. And there's a big difference, man. When you're dealing with penitentiary inmates, it's a different animal. If you haven't done it, it's very different than dealing with guys that are going to be your neighbors next week. So we got it under control, but then there was a series of regimes, and I'm being very careful here because there were some good ones, mixed in there. But there was a series of guys that came through there. There's a lot of changes in these prisons as far as leadership, every 3 years, 2, 3 years. Because quite frankly, you can't do it that long at that level because you'll burn out. At least if you're doing it effectively, it's extremely high pace, extremely long days. You just can't operate at that speed forever. So anyways, several less than ideal leadership situations in a row led to lack of discipline, lack of confidence from the staff to the leadership, no regard at all for any consequences from the inmate population. And I don't even mean physically. I just mean there nothing happened, right? They could act up, stab each other, and they right back up, didn't miss a beat. The year before I got there, I think there were 7 murders. There were a lot of murders that year in that prison. It earned itself the nickname Misery Mountain, and it does sit on top of a mountain, and the weather is horrible, so the nickname is pretty appropriate. But it really wasn't that hard to get right. And I hate to say this, I think the inmates wanted peace and security and order as much as anybody at that point because, they got to fight for their lives in there too if the place is chaotic. And I truly believe a good percentage is, and just being honest, I got as many thank yous as I did FUs from the inmates.
And I'm totally ignorant to your world. Let's just say drugs. How would if it's secure and people are locked in there and they're serving time, how do contraband like drugs and stuff get in there? Is it crooked guards or is it other ways? How does that happen?
So there's always going to be a small degree of staff that you're working against, right? But it's not a large scale thing like the movies portray. In fact, without getting into specific security measures, there's a very good screening process for staff on the way in each time they come in and out. Obviously nothing's foolproof, but it's pretty darn good. The primary method right now is drones. Drones are a massive problem. Yeah,
really?
drones are, yeah, and huge drones. They are a massive problem nationwide. Unfortunately, we even have systems in place that not us here. The systems exist, right? That could make the drones land at a certain point safely, not crashing them, not shooting them down. But the FAA, unfortunately, views that as aircraft. They don't care drone or aircraft. They treat it as the same. They view it as aircraft interdiction, and it's a federal crime for us to intervene. It's insane. It truly is. So they're basically enabling the criminal underworld by not changing that opinion.
Wow.
And that's been for many years. The other way that these things are coordinated is through contraband cell phones. Again, this time it's not the FAA, it's the FCC. It's illegal for us to jam the cell phone signals inside of a prison. They have no right, no access to a cell phone, but yet we're not allowed to jam. It's insane.
Whoa.
It's truly insane. So, and this is nationwide. It's a federal law. So it drives us absolutely crazy because we see the answers. It's so easy that we can make such a splash with stopping this stuff, but yet it's illegal. And unfortunately, we're on that side that we actually follow the law.
Wow. When someone like you comes in to make some changes, what percent of the staff do you see that's into it and resistance? Because I guess you have 2 customers there, so to speak. I'm in sales. You have your staff and you have to sell to the inmates too, right? Yes. So what percent is the pushback and what percent are like, wow, thank God this is getting better?
So staff-wise, depends on how bad it is, right? If it's really bad, you'll get 95, close to 100% buy-in if you're coming in and implementing sound security procedures, taking care of your staff, and making the prison safer and more orderly. All staff want that. Inmates, depends on the security level. It's a mix, right? If you're the guy that's in there who legitimately made a mistake, wants to better themselves, and wants to go home to their family and live a better life, you're going to love it. You're going to love the peace. You're going to love the quiet. I got a lot of thank yous for that. If you're the guy that wants to be the better criminal and make a bank boatload of money while you're in prison, couldn't care less about your out date, your family or any of that. There are plenty of them. You're going to hate me because you're going to lose a ton of money. We're going to do everything we can to make your business tougher. What I didn't finish actually on the contraband conversation was mail. Mail is another big one. And you wouldn't, mail, legal mail, books, they're soaking pages in synthetic narcotics, drying them out really good and shipping them to prisons all across the country. It happens everywhere. It happens in every system. If you don't think it's happening, I promise you it's happening. Some systems don't seem to be as aggressive with fighting contraband as others, but I promise you that it's there. And I also promise that contraband is a driving force behind debt, violence, larger restrictive housing populations, murders, everything inside the prisons, because you get erratic behavior. You get people owing large debts that they can't or, never intended to pay. Disrespect over not paying the debts. It's a massive problem, to be honest.
You write in the book, The Storm Before the Calm, when you talk about prison reform. Can you describe what that means?
Yeah, there is going to be from the inmate population a degree that, and that's kind of where I equate the counterinsurgency. There's a strong percentage, especially at the higher security levels, that are going to actively or at least passively resist your efforts and look for countermeasures or counter ways around what you're doing and what you're putting in place. To some degree, it becomes a chess match. They're going to make a move and I make a move, and then I've got to adjust to their move and try to shut these holes down. But anyways, this storm before the calm is one of the main tactics they'll use is family members, politicians. Family will reach out to politicians and complain about how tough we're being and how unnecessarily restrictive we're being inside. And we're shutting this down. We're slowing books down. And we are, because you're loading it full of narcotics and we're going to drive violence down. We prepare our regional office, our central office, and I'm giving the example of the federal side, prepare them that there's going to be a lot of complaints. It's coming. But if you want this fixed, you've got to have the heart to answer the complaints. And what we tried to do was make as many generic chained responses for what we thought was going to come. So it wasn't overwhelming trying to put these responses together. We had them pre-prepared and we were ready for them. We tried to foresee every angle. Full disclosure, we did not. There were angles we didn't see coming. You just have to be ready and you have to have the heart to stick it out and have some difficult conversations with people. I'll show the example. When I got there, it was, like I said, 7 murders. I was there over 2 years, didn't have a single murder. Restrictive housing, which is quote unquote lockup, was stuffed when I got there. I mean, absolutely stuffed. There was no room. There were plenty of guys living in general population that belonged in lockup. A lot of guys were in there just simply because they felt unsafe and refused to go out because the place was horribly run. When I left, there were 2 empty ranges, plenty of room. And it wasn't for lack of enforcement. Yeah, we just ran it tough. We ran it secure. We ran it orderly. It was very disciplined. Even in lockup, you had to be up at 7:30 in the morning, make your bed, put your uniform on, have your cell inspection ready every single day. And you know what? They hated it. They didn't want to be there. So guess what they didn't do? They didn't screw up and go to lockup. It was a deterrent. And that's it. That's its purpose in life, is to be a deterrent. It's not supposed to be somewhere they want to go lay down and put their feet up.
In the book, you write about the gangs inside the prison were operating like insurgent groups. What specific moment did the light bulb go off? You know what? David Petraeus this. I'm going to take the principles I've learned with the counterinsurgency model they did in Iraq and bring it into the prison system. When did that light bulb turn on?
We started analyzing, and I'm going to be very vague here on purpose because I don't want to release the federal side's full capabilities. There's access to some communication systems that the inmates use, right? Whether it be phones, emails, whatever. We did a lot of analysis. I say we, not me. It was our team. We had a solid intel team. And when we saw the scope and the size and the organization, I'm just going to call them, even beyond gangs, DTOs, drug trafficking organizations. These were well-organized machines. And when we saw the scope of it, we realized that this was big money, that this was a big time operation, and it had to be shut down at all costs. So that's when we took the gloves off and We really started focusing hard on how to shut them down, dismantle their power base. A couple of them we had to move out of there, to be honest with you, because they were too powerful. There was, lack of better terms, there was Mexican mafia, there was Boston mob, there was a ton of people there, man, that had a ton of stroke. The highest ranking outlaw biker in the country. Who else was it? Texas. I'm trying to think. I'm blending prisons here. Anyway, there was a lot of Serenos, MS-13, you name it, it was there. And all of DC inmates. They're not technically a gang. They're a gang. And they're some of the most violent individuals on the planet. Inmates that were in the Washington, D.C. system. It was taken over by the federal system, I'd say, in the early 2000s. And that really changed the federal system. It got so much more violent when those guys hit that system.
Crazy stuff. When you start implementing changes, is there like a main first or second change you always do? Like, what's the starting point?
My starting point is almost always the lockup. I've always beat this. It's been beaten into my head, and I beat this into our staff's head. Your jail's going to go as your lockup goes. If your lockup's a crowded, undisciplined mess, I don't need to look at anything else. I can tell your jail's going to be a disaster. If your lockup's orderly, structured, disciplined, regimented, clean, not people beating on the doors and screaming down the ranges, if it's quiet, I can already tell your jail's probably going to look pretty good. So that's where I start. And that's I'm going to be honest, that's a struggle sometimes. There were times I had to go down there twice a day. And in that capacity, I really wasn't acting as a warden. I was probably acting as a mid-level supervisor, earning the trust of my staff, because I had to show them that, one, it was okay to do. They weren't going to get attacked. They weren't going to get hurt. They weren't going to get in trouble. And then I'm also showing that I'm not asking them to do anything that I won't do myself. That's one of the real confidence boosts that it got to the point where if I found something out of order, they took that personal. They were like, "Oh, that ain't happening again." It almost turned into a little bit of a game, but they really did eventually buy in. But there were some long days, man, long days getting that place straight.
Because you need like the boots on the ground. Like, they have to see you. If you're not there and interacting and in the game, you're not going to build their trust, right? No trust, no nothing, right? You
Yes,
got to
sir.
win the hearts and mind of your own people first before you
Yeah.
influence the outside world, right?
100%. Yes, sir. Man, I was in that jail every single day for months. Dressed down, walking around, helping with day-to-day tasks. But you have to, right? You really do. And I'll say there's a great core, and I'll say this to Hazelton crew: they take a bad rep sometimes. There is a great core of staff there. Somebody goes in there and takes care of them, and they actually, I should step back. They have a very good leader right now, a young lady by the name of Misty Starr. She's on her way to getting that place back on track. But they have a solid crew. They have a solid core that will do the right thing as long as they're empowered to do so.
Yeah.
So,
If you had to pick, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear your thoughts. If you had to pick between having the perfect security technology or the perfect staff culture, what would you choose?
I would staff all day. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Security is beatable. It's flawed. It can go down. You have a solid base of staff that are willing to do the right thing, even if it's not popular.
Yeah.
Follow. Listen, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, or unethical, we're
Yeah.
good to go, right? Sometimes you have long, sweaty, hot days where you're out there 15, 16, 17 hours. Other than that, you just have to put your nose to the ground, stay clean, don't do anything stupid, don't take anything personal.
Mhm.
You're going to be called every name in the book.
Yeah.
You're going to have stuff thrown in your direction and all kinds of nonsense, right? You cannot let it get to you.
Mhm.
They want that reaction. They want the rise out of you. And when you don't react, it probably doesn't happen again.
Speaking of the inmates, and I think the one thing you see, like in even something like a Shawshank, like how sophisticated and smart the criminals can be,
Oh,
right?
they're insanely
They're
smart.
insanely smart, insanely smart. Like, what's the most sophisticated or surprising tactic you've encountered in your days from the
Oh,
criminals?
early on in my career, I saw the neatest thing I've ever seen. So you remember, we were younger, right? When you didn't have a cable channel, you had squiggly lines
Yeah,
on the TV, right?
yeah,
To include the porn channel and all that, right? So I was at a prison in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and it had a cable hookup. It didn't have any, obviously any pay channels or any of that nonsense. I walked by the TV room and it's packed like there's going to be a football game on, right? So I stick my head in there. I know there's no game on. I stick my head in there and there's some nonsense Lifetime movie on the TV. I'm like, what the hell is this, right? So I walk around again. I come back around. It's the same nonsense. It's packed, and the same darn show was on. And it's just not making any damn sense to me. So I wait about 15 minutes. I walk outside, sneak up the windows, looking from the outside in, and I see this damn guy had made out of an old school Sony Walkman, had coax running out of top and the bottom of it. And it wasn't perfect, but he had made a descrambling device using the tuning thing on the Walkman to moderately descramble the signal on the cable TV. So you could at least make out more than you would have without it. Again, it wasn't perfect, but he had charged admission at the time. The prison currency was mackerel. He had charged 5 mackerel for everybody, cans of mackerel to
Yeah.
get into prison or to
Wow.
get in to watch the movie.
Holy crap. That's
I,
wild. How
I thought that was
smart.
ingenious. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you put that guy on the outside world and put him in a positive direction, dude. He's solving problems
It'll
that we
cure
need
cancer.
solved, right?
He'll
Cancer's
cure
gone. Like,
cancer.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're curing cancer. They're doing stuff that make the society better. You know what I mean?
I'm not even going to lie. I didn't even write the guy up. I said, give me that. Get the hell out of here.
It's, it's impressive. That is so
Yeah.
impressive. Everyone responds to incentives, good guys, bad guys, like incentives. One thing I learned from the book Freakonomics, follow how someone's incentivized, that's how they're going to respond. How do you incentivize prisoners to do the right thing when maybe you can't monetarily reward them? How's that work?
So actually, it's a great question. So I incentivize them positively and negatively.
Okay.
So if you're acting right, we created what's called, at the time they were called honor dorms. Sometimes they're called character dorms. And we would develop the criteria for the units based on the institution, right? Like Hazelton, I couldn't have a very high standard for prior discipline because everybody had pretty much been in trouble recently, right?
Hmm.
But what we did is we created contracts where, from the time you sign, basically a social contract, from the time you sign up for this program, you agree to be disciplinary free. A really good example, I didn't really get it too far off the ground at Hazelton, but I did prior to that at Williamsburg. We had a full program going. So you offer a positive, right? They get first run movies, they get sometimes popcorn with the movies. It's stupid things, right? But it's more than anyone else gets, and it makes them feel good, that their positive behavior is rewarded. If they're a veteran, they got this display their service logo on the outside of their door. They got extra recreation time. Sometimes they get an extra visiting day here and there where it's just their unit in the visiting room. And it's not loud and obnoxious, and they can actually focus on their family. Different commissary items where the rest of the yard can't buy this, but you can get ice cream today. It's dumb things, right? But it's not.
Yeah.
It makes them feel more at home, more relaxed. And then on the flip side, we had other units that more tightly run housing units for those that were disruptive in general population, but not quite bad enough for lockup. So we would try to put those in the more restrictive run housing units, more structured, less open door time, not lockdown, but less time out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just to make them realize that, hey, dude, you're about to screw up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used
Almost
to
like a
reward them
Minority
positive and
Report. It's
negative.
almost like Tom Cruise's Minority Report. You catch them before they do something wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get them when they're going down that road, they're being disruptive, not following direction, but not serious enough to end up in lockup at a penitentiary.
How
But
about if someone came to you and said, Brian, I'm taking over this prison. It's totally chaotic. Staff walkouts, has media attention, chaotic facility. What's my first week look like? Would you sketch out the first week?
do nothing but observe and walk around and talk to your staff. Find out what the real problems are. Your staff on the ground are going to know. You may hear completely different from the administration, completely, because some of them are very out of touch. Some of them don't take the time to get to know their staff and listen to what the real issues are. I'll give you an example. When we went into Hazelton, right, they were horribly short-staffed. The staff were furious, right? They had a billboard on I-68 outside the institution with coffins on it, talking about how unsafe it was to work there. Who the hell's going to apply to work there with a billboard on the highway with coffins, right? So that was one of the first conversations we had. So I will tell you, those guys were great. They were great to work with. I can't say a bad thing about them. Some guys gave them a bad rep, but they really only fought for what was right. So anyway, it was one of the first things I did was sit down with them and be like, look, guys, you want more people. You're screaming in the news for more people, but you have a billboard up with coffins on it. we got to work on this, right? They actually went full circle on that, and they let us use that billboard for recruitment. And that was a huge first step and a huge sign that they were willing to work with us and really realized that we wanted to fix the problem. They wanted to fix the problem. And if we work together, we can actually do it.
Yeah. Dude,
You
working
know,
together, that teamwork and collaboration, no matter what industry you're in, is so big, isn't it? From the
absolutely.
military to the prisons to running a sales team, the collaboration is everything, isn't it? Culture, collaboration. How do you create? All right, say you go into prison, right? You go in, you clean things up, you're there, I'll make it up. You're there for a couple years and it's running great. How do you build the system that outlasts the leader that's there? So when
Uh,
does that make sense, that question? Like, how do you
yeah,
leave
totally.
something that when you leave, it doesn't go to shit again? Like, you know what? It's lasting change.
So you can do your best, right, to do that. When you get the staff's buy-in and you get them involved in the planning process, and you start developing that next generation of leadership, and they start moving up to the mid-level positions, you're almost there, right? Because then they start doing that with their staff. They start developing those that are coming up under them. They start working on them, getting them involved in the planning process. Because really, the place fails when there's a leadership vacuum. What you hope is you have that core that's going to step up and fill that vacuum, no matter what the level is. But this is where I say you try, because if the next leadership team or lack thereof comes in and crushes the morale and crushes independent thoughts, and they're a narcissistic dictator, people are going to shut down. And even your best are eventually going to, why am I getting beat over the head when I'm just going to stay out of the way? You can destroy a place almost overnight,
Yeah.
but it takes a while to fix it.
It's almost like character. Like you could have like 20 years of a spotless record. You do something crazy, that 20 years is destroyed in 5 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned how like your lower level guys become mid-level and they start taking over, and that's how the culture is. So it's almost like a leader's job is to create the next level of leaders.
Absolutely. Listen, our time is numbered, especially as
Yeah,
we get in those leadership roles. It's
yeah,
not about us anymore. It's
yeah.
about our troops. The real thing, the crazy thing about prisons, right? People don't think about when you're a prison warden, you're not just responsible for security. You've got medical, maintenance, food service,
Hmm.
warehouse. I mean, dentist, psychologist, stuff you would never, ever, ever even imagine that you're responsible for.
Yeah,
It's like being the mayor of a moderately large city,
yeah.
and when I tell you it can be challenging, but probably one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had when you do it right, especially when you see the difference you can make and the difference in staff morale, even inmate morale in just a few months was almost unthinkable.
You mentioned in the book and then a couple of the interviews I saw you in, the thing that blows me away. You're in this like high security situation, probably some real dangerous people in there, probably some people that know how to kick some ass. Can you talk about the level of training, like the hours of training, self-defense
Oh,
training that the
it's
average
horrendous. It's
talk,
horrendous, and that's law enforcement wide. I can tell you the hours nationwide for most agencies are single digits.
single digits?
Um,
I mean, for the year,
yeah,
4 hours, you mean, like
most agencies have annual training.
and then how long do they last?
And annual training is, I'm going to tell you, typical agencies about 40 hours, right? For all, but that's not all DT. That's firearms, that's DT, defensive tactics, that's legal classes, all the legal requirements that the lawyers say we have to have. All of that consumes part of that 40 hours. And there's really no availability. I'm just going to be honest, staffing nationwide and law enforcement is down, right? It's not a sexy career anymore. We're not tripping over people. You really couldn't afford right now to pull people for too much more training. You really couldn't.
So if someone
So
went through the training program and say, hey, I want to go in this career, they do the 40 hours. What do they get? Maybe 5 hours of self-defense training?
so
What do you think they
so
get?
that's annual, right?
Okay.
So your initial is going to be longer. They'll be an academy,
Okay.
but I'm going to say your average academy is probably 8 weeks, and that might even be on the high end. But that's still maybe a week of DT.
Wow. So you're going to go in with a week of training. So I'm just thinking a week of jujitsu, right? You're one weekend, you got like three classes in, and you're
Yeah,
going to fight someone bigger, stronger, faster, way more violent. And you're going to have to learn how to, wow. That's
The
crazy.
hope is that you don't have to, but
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately, it's at some point. Again, the enemy gets a vote. You're not going to have a choice.
The enemy gets a vote. And now with cameras and stuff, you could YouTube. There's so many fights you see, even just not in prison, even law enforcement, where
Oh yeah.
that law enforcement officer that does not know what to do when they go to the ground, and they're just getting destroyed.
Well, if I can jump in on that, man,
Yeah,
that's one thing, and not just law enforcement, not just military, not just corrections. Everybody, I think, and you know this as well as anyone, when you train, you are put in some of the worst scenarios on the planet, man. We both trained with Randy Aiken.
yeah.
When Randy Aiken is on top of you and cross side, if you don't relax and focus your thoughts and maximize every freaking movement, you're getting crushed, and he is going to wreck you.
And
That
smile
I mean,
about it. And smile about
yeah,
it.
yes, and that's just an analogy, though, because I think that applies to life. Like
Yeah.
if you just slow everything down, relax, stabilize yourself, brace. When things get tough, make a sound, calm decision versus an erratic spaz out. Your outcome's going to be so much better. And I really think guys that train honestly do better in life. Maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but I really see it for myself anyway.
It is like, so we got a group at Randy's school at our Access. We have a sunrise crew, and it's mostly a lot of like 35-year-old dudes that have kids, and like they just can't train at night. They got like soccer practice, they're
Yep.
lawyers, they come back 7 o'clock at night. They can't make class at night. So we have like 3, 4 nights, 3, 4 mornings a week. We're there at 5 or 6 training. And you're in some of the worst positions of the week, like by 6:20 Monday morning, where you got this dude
Yes, sir.
who's 60 pounds heavier, like a freaking 10 years younger, and just trying to choke your lights out. And at 7:15, we're back home. There's no, unless the day goes radically wrong, the rest of the day's cake, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
I think a lot of that's just your outlook too.
yeah,
It gives you that outlook on life.
absolutely. And then what's that do for your confidence level, right?
The other thing too about it, right? And this is where I think everyone makes better decisions when they train. You're so much more confident in your abilities, right? So I'm actually confident enough not to react to stupid things that I might have reacted to had I not been trained.
Absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, I think my use of force numbers would have been way higher,
Yep.
way higher. Because I trained jujitsu longer than I was in law enforcement. So I don't have a comparison when I was and wasn't, right?
Hmm.
So I came in, I was training when I started at Maxwell,
Hmm.
or vice versa. I was training at Maxwell's when I started.
What
So
were you at Maxwell size?
oh God, 98 maybe,
Yeah,
98,
okay.
99.
We shared the mat. I was there 98, 99. I showed up there. I literally had at 98, I had a first degree black belt in Kempo. Probably trained about 10, 11 years in stand up. Thought I was okay. Showed up at Steve's school on a Saturday. It was just Steve. He was a purple belt at the time. He was like a four-stripe purple belt, which is unheard of at the time in 98, right?
Oh yeah, yes,
And
sir.
yeah, we walked in and he's like, "What would you do if I did this?" And he put me in a move. And if he didn't let go of the move, I'd still be there.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
still be at 7th and Chestnut Street. Like I had no idea. Like 12 years in, and he goes, "Do it to me." I did it to him. He's like, "Boom, arm bar." He's like, "That's jujitsu." I'm like, "Sign me up." Handed the
Yeah,
black belt in for a white belt. And
sir.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, I couldn't walk around with that level of ignorance after the awareness was there. Like after I was aware of that level of ignorance I had. And I
Yes,
probably
sir.
still do. It's a whole bunch. But the more you train, the more you realize you don't know. But you're sitting there, you're like, oh my God. Like I wouldn't say I was taught a lie, my confidence level, my ability level was so out of whack when I walked into exercise for the first time. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
sir.
Like just you didn't know what was possible. But like you said, you're less inclined to react because like jujitsu, I think Jocko calls it the mats of justice, where like
Yes, sir.
it introduces you to who you are, right?
Yeah,
You want someone's character. You could find out more in 5 minutes of rolling with them on the mat than you could going to dinner with them for 5 hours.
yeah,
No doubt, right? I mean,
no
without
doubt.
question, roll with them for 5 minutes. You'll know exactly who they are, how they respond under pressure, duress. Do they freak? Are they calm? Are they chill? Are they funny? Are they jerks? Like you don't know. 5 minutes on the mat, you can figure it out, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
day,
yeah,
man. It, and then there's the physical fitness aspect of it,
yeah.
right? I'll jump into that super quick. There was a while there where I was a fat slob. I think we talked off camera about this. So I started off as an elite athlete, 6 months a year for my military career. Went out to Colorado Springs. My coach, Rich Estrella, was the assistant national Greco coach in 1996. So we got to go through the National Greco-Roman Olympic camp at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. Amazing experience, right? Absolutely amazing experience. And we weren't, full disclosure, we weren't OCC invitees, but Rich was the coach, so we got to go through the whole program, right? So it was experience I'll never replace in my life. It was amazing. Steve Frazier was coaching. It was just lights out wrestling, in the room with Matt Lindland, Vogel, several, TC Dantzler, Olympians, right? Went on to be UFC fighters. They were all in the room, and it was Steve Horton. They're just, you can go on and on about names. So went through that, was in best shape of my life. Used to walk around at, I don't know, 180, 190, cut to 163 for tournaments. And then got out of the military, started in law enforcement, got comfortable. And I told you, I turned into a fat slob, man. I got so undisciplined, so unstructured, stopped lifting, lost my way. I was a big kid when I got out of the military, like put together. I was competing in powerlifting, overseas, playing rugby. I was a loose head prop. I loved it. So anything athletic and physical, jiu-jitsu, I was into it. If it was banging heads with somebody, I wanted to sign up. So, anyways, somewhere along the way, I lost my way. I still trained, but not like I was, if that makes sense. I was still rolling, gassed in 30 seconds, horribly pathetic. If I didn't tap you quick, it was over.
Is that the worst when you're done? The mat has 3 minutes to go. It seems like three
Oh
hours
yeah,
and you got nothing left.
yeah, and you basically turtle up, and they
That's
have their way with you. I
horrible.
mean,
Oh my God, it's so horrible. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Yeah. And
but
and Maxer, so just get back to Maxercise real quick. Those 98, 99, I think when you and I were on the same mat together in Philly, I never got my ass kicked so bad. Then we show up there, and I mean, there was Ricky, there was like little Tony, there was like Jared Werner, there's just Marco
Brad Core,
Perazzo, yeah, Brad
Marco,
Core.
yeah.
Oh, there was Tim Carpenter. Like there's just,
Oh Jesus,
oh
yeah.
my Jesus Christ, you go there and just get your
Uh,
ass kicked.
You remember Yasushi Miyake? Uh,
Crazy, like crazy.
I mean, we had a room, man. That was a room of killers.
Oh my God. I would bring, and I never did this with Kempo, and all due respect to Kempo. When I was living in the city and I'd either take a bike, I'd bike down or walk to the school, I would bring my medical card because I knew that the chances of me going 2 blocks up to Jefferson were real impossible.
Yeah.
Me going to the ER that day. And I would just
Oh yeah.
make sure my medical card was there. So if I had to walk into the ER, I'm like, hey man, you got to take it. And unfortunately, a couple of times I did that. But
Yes, sir.
it's freaking crazy. It's just you talk about like you leave your ego at the door. If you don't leave it at the door, it'll bang it out of you, man. It'll
Oh
choke it out of you. Yeah. It's freaking
yes, sir.
nuts. But then it's addictive. Why is it addictive? I don't know why.
Yeah, we like to torture ourselves.
Yeah.
We like to see what our bodies can do and how far we can push it before we're done.
Yeah.
They used to shut the no air up there on that third floor.
None.
None. I mean, it was the mats
Stairs
were
like
so
this. The
slick.
stairs were like a ladder. Like the stairs were
Yeah,
like this. Yeah, third floor,
yes,
100
sir.
degrees.
Yes, sir.
Crazy.
It was great, and then they brought in, what was the name? The Black Belt, Hedges Lebre.
Yeah, hedges. Yeah.
Uh, they had a crew of killers up there, man. So that was really a great base for any jujitsu that we had.
Mm.
It was unfortunate the way things played out there. I won't get into that, but I hated to see that thing split up the way it did.
Yeah, lucky enough, we followed Phil and Rick to
Yes,
balance,
sir.
and that was phenomenal. I mean, those guys are just so good and just so
Hey,
awesome. They're the guys. They just spread it throughout Philly. There's just about
oh, yeah.
everything in Philly, and jiu-jitsu has the balance influence to some degree, right?
Well, and the strange part, man, we were some of the first ones to leave when there was a little bit of drama. I don't do well with drama, right? I just prefer to be away from it. So there was a crew of us that was training in Rich Colmar's chicken coop.
Okay, yeah.
No heat, no air
In
conditioning.
Jersey, down in Jersey. Okay, yeah,
Oh yeah, and we
yeah.
were training there all the time. Me, Marco, Phil, Ricky, obviously Rich. But yeah, I mean, some heavies were coming down there, and we were getting after it in that chicken coop. It was amazing.
That's good.
But
That's
that
perfect.
that's oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
No, it's good
But
times, man. I had transferring over to a part of the interview we call Share Your Secrets. So our guests can get to know you a little bit more as a person. Bryan, you've turned around prisons, you served our country in the Air Force under duress. When you need to clear your mind and recharge your body, what do you do?
Lift and
Lift.
lift heavy.
Yeah.
I've got a playlist. I know I've got a workout playlist, but then I've got basically an angry metal, just hardcore playlist. I'll put it in my head and I'll go do heavy deadlifts or
Yeah.
heavy squats or that's my outlet now, right? It's just torturing myself to see what kind of pain and punishment I can put myself through. And no matter what has happened before that, the feeling you get of satisfaction when you leave that gym
Yeah.
after you've thrown that weight around,
Yeah.
you can't help but feel good. I mean, you may feel like you're going to puke, but you still feel good. That's really, I'll do something. Maybe it lines up with an open mat, right? I'll
Mhm.
go to an open mat and like we got a new guy that just came in. He transferred in down here in Columbia. We do the 6 minute rounds normally with 1 minute break. Well, this past time, he kept turning the time to 8 minutes and doing 10-second breaks in between
Whoa.
rounds.
Whoa.
You line yourself up with one of those when you're in a shitty mood, you're going to forget whatever
Yeah.
your bad mood was about.
Yeah. How do you stay on? I mean, granted, you're a big, strong dude, but like, how do you stay on the mat? Like, we're all 50 now. How do you stay on the mat when everyone coming in is 25? And like, how do you
Yeah.
train hard but do it for longevity? Have any secrets or tips?
Leave your ego at the door, right? If I'm caught, I'm tapping. I don't care if it's a day one white belt. I'm not going to risk my health and longevity. I was jacked up a little bit in the military. Long story short, I blew my knee out, ended up needing a couple of surgeries, worked its way up. I now have two fake discs in my neck and back. C5, 6, and 6, 7 are actually fake discs.
Whoa.
I'm fully cleared, but physically, like structurally, I'm a mess. I'm in great shape, but structurally, I'm an absolute mess. At some point, I'll need knee replacements. It's been a long run, right? But I train smart, right? If I'm caught, I'm tapping. I'll scramble. I'll scramble out of things if I can. But if somebody's got a solid bite on something, I don't have to sit there and see how far I can take it before something snaps.
Okay. Yeah.
I've seen that way too many times,
Yeah.
and I'll leave names out. I felt horrible once, man. I'm 52 now, right? I've injured two people in my career training in 28 years. One was minor. It was kind of like an in-house tournament at Fortunato Karate Academy. Jiu-jitsu though, right? So I was rolling with a very experienced guy who was much better than me. I hopped into a heel hook, which was also taboo back then. We trained heel hooks. We trained them all the time. I didn't realize they didn't. He had no idea what the hell I was doing, and I
Ooh.
snapped it.
Whoa.
So, again, I was probably too young to be doing them then anyway, to be honest with you, in my career as far
Did
as
he not
experience
tap or
wise.
he tried to roll the wrong way? What happened?
There was no rolling. He was kind of looking at me like I was crazy, like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean?
He didn't respect the hill. He had no idea what he was in and you just twisted?
That or he thought I was going to let it go, and
Okay.
I was running it till he tapped, to be honest with you. I didn't know the guy,
Yeah, yeah.
And then recently, and I feel like a bag of shit about this one. I was rolling at Maxercise headquarters in Philly and rolling with a really good dude. I'm not gonna say his name. Fucking solid. I still feel crappy about this. I went to go hook the leg for a belly down knee bar, and when I went to roll forward, my leg slipped underneath, and I went way faster than I wanted to
Whoa.
because the mats were so I sweat like a pig anyway. My leg just slipped all the way under and basically landed right in the knee bar, and it blew the knee.
Whoa.
So that got my attention, man. I rarely even do that knee bar anymore, just to be honest with you, just because of that. It's one of my favorite moves. But yeah, I feel like a bag of crap about that one.
About 10 years ago, I was rolling at balance. I didn't recognize a knee bar coming on and I rolled the wrong way and my knee blew. And dude, not a good feeling, man. Just you hear the
Yeah,
pop and you're like, whoa. And see you 10
yeah,
months from now. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
see you at the end of
It
oh
was loud too, and I
yeah.
felt doubly crappy. The dude's a doctor. I won't say his name, but he had a lot to lose in professional career, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh man.
It happens, man. It's part of the game. It's unfortunate, but it's part of the game. How about moving on? How about most authors like yourself are big readers? Is there a book that most influenced your life or changed your mind more than any other?
Hands down, extreme ownership.
Extreme
Jocko Willink's
ownership.
book, yeah, hands down.
So good.
Um, I could kind of consider it the leadership Bible, not to be
Yeah.
sacrilegious or anything. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It really helped shape my principles. And if anyone listening to this hasn't read it or listened to it, do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. I run a sales team, and from day one, I needed like a structure. And before I took the position over, I decided it's the four laws of combat. My whole thing is cover, move, simple, prioritize, and execute decentralized command. Like
Yep,
those four things, I base my leadership strategy on. And everything I do
absolutely.
is one of those four things. It gives you such an amazing filter that him and Leif came up with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's an amazing book.
Eh, Yeah, and then you listen to their podcast and you get into some of the deeper stuff, the OODA loops and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's the whole philosophy is amazing, man. It really
yeah.
is.
And I love just to detach, man. Just to take a step back. It's just
Yes, sir.
anything you do, it's just get crazy in the house, in your family. It gets crazy at work. It's crazy wherever you are. And you're like, just let me take a step back. And like, it's amazing what you can see when you step like 6 inches back, a foot back.
And what's he say? Relax, look around, make a call.
Yeah,
You,
relax,
you
look
know,
around. Jamie Cochran always says that. Relax, look around, make a call. And I think the hardest part is the relax, the awareness that you have to stop and relax, then to look around. Like to detach for that second is it's everything. And it's a learned skill.
no doubt. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
How about this, Brian? If you could have everyone listening take just one lesson away from everything we discussed, what would that lesson be?
Make time for yourself, for your family, no matter how chaotic things get. If you get up an hour early, go to the gym, eat right, go for a walk with your wife, take the dogs out for a walk with your family. And, some mistakes I made along the way. And thankfully, I've got a damn good partner. Be there when you're there, if that makes sense. Don't be thinking about work because there's been plenty of times where I've done that. Don't be thinking about work or what you're going to do tomorrow at work or what you didn't finish. Listen, the second we leave our jobs, we're going to be replaced. And if you're lucky, they'll talk about you for 6 months. If you're lucky,
Yeah.
it's a great career. It is wonderful. Give it everything you got. But remember that your health, your family, and your fitness is way more important. Way more important. You've got to slow things down. You've got to take the time to eat right. At least get close to enough sleep. I'm not unrealistic. I know a lot of us overwork ourselves and don't sleep enough. Right? It just happens. Make the time to even sit down and watch a Netflix show with your wife, whatever, something they want to do together. You've got to do it, man. I think that's the biggest thing, though. We treat ourselves and our staff like robots, that they're not human
Mm.
and that they can absorb everything. And in most cases, we can. But there are times, man, that's why you get annual leave and vacation time and take it, go away, unplug. Just today, I called one of my guys. I didn't realize I was off. I heard some background noise. I said, "Hey, man, you off today?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Goodbye."
Mm.
And whatever it wasn't that important.
Mm.
I'll figure it out without him. You've got to unplug every once in a while, man.
That's fantastic. Two fun questions to wrap this up. I asked this to all the guests. First question, Brian, if you could spend a day with anyone, famous or not famous, alive or dead, who would you spend the day with?
It's going to be an interesting answer because I almost got to do it. Retired Army General Hal Moore. If you ever saw the movie We Were Soldiers,
Yeah. Mel Gibson,
the,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was based on Hal Moore, right? Wonderful career, amazing leader. What I didn't realize, he died somewhere around 2017 or somewhere in that ballpark. What I didn't realize is he was living right up the road from us in South Carolina. We were in Pawleys Island, like one town up. Would have taken me 20 minutes to find out where he was. And I didn't know he lived there until I saw the obituary. That would have been amazing to get down and shake the man's hand. If I was lucky enough to actually talk to him, just to pick that brain. Everything he did, his writings, everything just made sense to me. I loved his leadership style. I loved the way he took care of his troops. Learn the job of those above you, teach your job to those below you. That was one of his main things he taught. Take care of each other, check each other out, equipment checks. Everything that we do now came from his doctrine. So I really would have loved to have got to actually physically talk to that man, but unfortunately I missed out on that.
Wow, that's great. It sounds like how he ran his military system. It's a lot like jujitsu. Focus on the fundamentals and get really good at the basics. Just really check on your people, check your equipment, like the really, really solid fundamentals. No
Yes,
matter
sir.
where you are, there's a base of fundamentals. You got to get good at them or nothing else works.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Last question. Bryan Antonelli, if you had to get a quote or a saying tattooed on your body, what would that quote or motto say?
Again, I'm going to steal it from Hal Moore. There's always one more thing you can do to increase your odds of success.
Wow, there is always one more thing you can do to increase your odds of success.
Yes, sir.
That is phenomenal. Never heard that one. I think that is about as good as a spot as any to wrap this up. Before we close, Bryan, I want to read a quote that I just love from your book, Seize, Clear, Build, and Hold. And here's the quote to end it. The journey requires dedication, adaptability, and vision for what correctional facilities can become. Not just places of confinement, but centers of transformation and hope. The road to lasting stability is complex, but with the right strategy and leadership, it is achievable. The
Yeah.
guest is Bryan Antonelli. The book is Seize, Clear, Build, and Hold. Bryan, yeah, bro, so great to finally connect with you. And thanks so much for being such a great guest.
You too, brother. This was wonderful to sit down with you. And, we both had some crazy schedules leading up to this. So my apologies as well for taking so darn long or, a lot of stuff going on out there, but I'm honored to be here.
Oh, honored to have you. Bryan, if people are looking for you and what you do online and your book, where can we find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I have a very active page there, probably 13 to 14,000 followers on LinkedIn. I post a lot of fitness content. I'm very focused on my organization. I've recently started Forged by Freedom, Fitness, Strength, and Nutrition. We are doing personal training, but I will tell you, if you reach out, I'll work with anyone of any physical condition. But if you're not dedicated, motivated, and want that outcome more than anything else, go somewhere else. I really only want those that are going to give it 1,000%. And if not, I'm going to politely ask you to either kick it up or move along. That being said, if you're all in, we got you. We'll get you to your goals. I've lived it. I've been to the extremes, elite athlete, fat slob, now back in really good shape. Still out there actively competing in jiu-jitsu, doing the world championships that haven't been announced yet, but I'm assuming Vegas in December. And then actively competing in powerlifting. I've got my eyes on a few over 50 world records right now. If I can make that 198 weight class and keep my strength. So we'll
Wow.
see.
Besides that, nothing going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Bryan, so great to connect with you, bro. Much respect. Thanks, man. Definitely, let's keep in touch and I wish you nothing but success in all you do, buddy.
You too, my brother. And listen, I can't wait to get back up there and roll with you guys again.
No, I appreciate you, man. Thank you, bro. Peace out, man. Thank you.
See you, brother.